but some of them we have for months.
Right, and so what happens is it makes it very difficult when they leave you and go to somebody else. Yes, you need a basic relationship, but it should not be an overly bonded relationship because you set that dog up for a really rough transition when they go.
So what's your suggestion? Like, how would you approach?
I would approach separate sleeping quarters, first of all, for the dogs, right? I would separate dinner times, right? I would restrict lovey-dovey, cuddly times, right? I know, it's so hard.
My tendency is to overlove them because, you know.
Oh, because you feel sorry for them and it's, oh, isn't life crappy? Yeah, I get that.
But my other ones kind of look like, hey, but, you know.
Yeah, but then what happens is they say, oh my gosh, I love you, and then you're like, okay, off you go, and they're like, but I thought I belonged here. So you need to care for their basic needs. You need to be loving to them and kind to them, but not overly so.
How about by the bed that night, those first nights? Not a good idea, I'm hearing.
You know, it depends on the dog. I mean, I would crate them, and I would have them close to the bed so that if they derive comfort from being close to you, that's great. But don't leave it there, right? Your job is to move it, move it, move it, move it, move it, so that you start to create that separation, because by creating that separation, you allow room for that new owner to have a clean slate to come in versus I'm superly bonded to you. So I would, you know, make sure, and it feels bad because a lot of these dogs have terrible life stories, you know, where they came from, and it's hard and they tug at your heartstrings. But as fosters, right, foster failures happen because we get overly bonded to them.
Oh boy.
Right?
We don't know what you're talking about.
Right? And having a group of fosters, right? You have skills I don't have, right? I would have a very hard time bringing in this dog and then giving this dog away. So every dog you add, every foster failure you add, limits the number of fosters that you can take, and pretty soon you don't have a foster. And having a big group of fosters is vital for the work that you do, which is the overall picture of getting these dogs into good homes. And to get these dogs into good homes, that means there needs to be room in your house for them to be there. And so for that to happen, it means you can't be foster failures. And for that to happen, it means you can't become overly bonded to your dog, to this
That's why I try to get them
out
as quick as fast as I can.
Absolutely, as quick as you can. It doesn't always happen because some dogs take longer to place.
Right.
So during that time, you really need to consider yourself as a way station, as a boarding facility, right? I'm going to get this dog out. I'm going to get them exercised. I'm going to do some short training. Here's your breakfast. And then you're going to be kenneled, because guess what? A good portion of the dogs that you're sending out are going to go to homes where they work 8 hours a day, right? And they need that kennel time, right? They need that crate time. Yes, ma'am.
A lot of the dogs are not crated. They go houses that we send our dogs to, even though the people work 8 hours a day. It's not that I'm disputing that. I'm just asking now. Do we really?
Most of us don't crate. We let the dogs have the run of the house with our pack. And part of the object is to get them so that they have free roam and can have free roam of a home, because people aren't going to crate, generally speaking. I'm not saying that's true all the time.
I think your best avenue is to make sure your dog is as well-rounded as possible. And that means being able to be crated, because some owners do want to crate, and being able to be free, right? So a combination of both. So being able to say, yes, you're with my pack for a limited amount of time, but then you're also isolated for part of the time. Because some of these dogs, even though they may have free roam, they may not have a pack that they're going to. They may or may not. So structuring your day to say, here's what I want my foster dogs to have. They need to be able to be alone. They need to be socialized with other dogs. They need to be social with people. They need to be able to not chew up my house, right? How am I going to teach these things? If this dog doesn't already have it, where's their weakness?
How do I improve on their weakness so that they're more adoptable, right? How do I improve on that? How do I teach them new stuff that's going to be beneficial when they go to a new home? So being very structured. For instance, my niece, her boyfriend got a promotion which requires him to be out of the state for 8 weeks, 2 months. And she said, my niece said, I'll take your dog, right? And so my niece is currently in college and she's living with her mother, my sister. And so my sister's home all day, every day. Would it be easier to let that dog out of the crate all day to walk around and roam with my sister? Sure. Is that in the best interest of the dog? No, because in 2 months, that dog is going to go back to his dad and live in the apartment by himself with nobody. So as hard as it is for my sister to see this dog in this crate every day, when she just wants to let the dog out, it's not in the dog's best interest. So you have to look at that from the foster's point of view, like what's in the best interest of the dog? Being well-rounded, being well-mannered. So meaning, am I rudimentary crate trained? Doesn't have to, you don't have to crate them all the time, but can they be in the crate? Can they be alone? So looking at that and saying, okay, because think about it, a lot of these dogs, they're hanging out with your dogs and it's great and it's a party and it's wonderful, and then they go home. Mm-hmm. I board this dog. I have a client who has this a sweet 1.5-year-old standard poodle who's afraid of everybody. Took him like 4 sessions before he'd even take a treat from me. And she said, we've got to go out of town. What do I do? Last time I boarded him, he came back with a big gash on his nose, and he's afraid of everybody at the boarding facility, right? And I'm like, bring him to me. Bring him to me. I don't do a lot of boarding, but bring him to me. So he now has a place that he can come. He hangs out with my poodles. He has the best time ever, right? He went back on Monday, and she sent me an email on Tuesday. He's so mopey, and he goes out in the backyard, because there's no other dogs in his house, and he barks. He's like calling, right? It's a different bark. He's calling to the other dogs in the neighborhood, right? And he's just like, this sucks. Right? And I feel bad, but I'm like, short of getting another dog, which is really ideal for this family, right? It is what it is, and I don't want, right? These fosters that you've got, they have this great Disneyland life with you, and then they go to the real world, and it doesn't always match. So structuring your day, like here's breakfast, right? And if we don't want to crate, right, then separating a confined area so that they are isolated but maybe not crated for a good portion of the day. Here's the laundry room, here's the hallway, right?